Hi, my name's Greg from TP Photography, and today I'm going to talk to you about something that other people have asked me in a few Facebook groups, things like that, in terms of white balance. So if you shoot in JPEG, then obviously the white balance is baked into the file. So some things might be orange, some might be blue, depending on where you're shooting. Auto white balance normally does a pretty good job of this. Certainly on the Sony's, the advantage of the EVF obviously is that you can see the colour change, so you know if it's roughly right. Now a few people said that they shoot with a white balance fixed throughout the whole day. This is when shooting in RAW format. Now my thought has always been that if you're shooting RAW format, then it doesn't really matter what you set the white balance to, because it's set in the camera, but because it's a RAW file you can change it afterwards. But a few people said this wasn't the case. They said that when you import into Lightroom specifically, even if you leave it as shot, then the white balance and the tint specifically will change, meaning that even if you've set it to a value in the camera, Lightroom will ignore it. So I wanted to do a couple of tests to see if this was the case, and also if it made any difference whether I set the white balance in camera and left it as set versus if I set it on auto white balance or a fixed white balance and then changed it in post-production. Would I get the same white balance value in the tint if I did it before or after, or did it make no difference? So I thought I'd do a quick test. So I was at a wedding yesterday. I got my friend Bob Wetton's custom white balance colour checker card. Thanks, Bob. I put it against some flowers and also another test target, just to make sure. One was inside, so it was sort of more tungsten-y light. One was in daylight, so it was a little bit more natural light, to see if did it make a difference whether it is artificial light versus daylight. And then I did a few things. First I set it as auto white balance, which is how I'd normally shoot. I then did a shot with a custom value, so I did a white balance off the tablecloth, for example, and then set that to a custom balance, and then did a shot like that, and then I just used one of the presets using a Kelvin temperature of 3400 or 5500, depending on whether I was in the inside the room or with the more natural light. Then I imported those into Lightroom with no developed settings applied, so that the white balance was as shot, and as expected the values there reflected the values that I'd set. So if I'd set 5500, then that's what was coming into me in Lightroom. The tint was the same, the custom white balance was the same, so when I imported them all, they all looked different, which is what I'd expect if I'd set the wrong white balance, so to speak. I'll put those up on the screen so you can see the difference. And then the next part of the test was, could I white balance effectively using this card? But I could do it on somebody's suit or some other target in there, or just by eye a little bit, and then sync it across a range of photos with the same lighting. Now some people say that it doesn't work quite as you'd expect in Lightroom, in that you won't get a consistent set of values if you cut and paste versus if you set it in camera. So I wanted to check to see if that was the case. So I white balanced across with this card, because that way I wasn't having to do it by eye. It was all done a little bit more accurately. So I tried that with there, and from what I can see, it all looks the same. The white balance and the tint stays the same. I'll bring it up on the screen again so you can see what it looks like. So the short answer is, it doesn't matter whether you set the white balance in camera or if you set it afterwards in Lightroom, you will get the same results. You might find that it helps aid your composition maybe, because you're not seeing white shifts in the same way as some people use black and white to help do that. But certainly when it comes to accurate white balance and copying that across sets, then it doesn't make any difference whether you shoot that in camera. Whatever you set it to be in camera, you can override that in Lightroom in the RAW, which is pretty much what I would expect. But having more than one person say that wasn't necessarily the case with Lightroom. I wanted to check that, and it seems that you can do that in Lightroom. So hopefully you found that helpful. Probably a bit waffly and maybe a bit confusing. Maybe the pictures will and the description in the video will help describe that a little bit better than what I've done in my words. But if you've got any thoughts or comments or suggestions, or maybe you've even found it different in for your camera. This is using the A7 Mark III Sony, compressed RAW files. I did test it with both convert to DNG and the original RAW files, and the results were the same. I did do I looked at the white balance and the tint, that was the same, and I also did a little test of what the value was on the card. I think it was on one of these red targets, and that was showing me the same as an average. So maybe you'll see a difference. If you want to have a look at the original RAW files, then let me know. Maybe you'll be able to see something different to what I can do. But if not, then thanks for watching, and bye bye.